And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Yeah.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
Look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, this is a little goofy. So, probably, I don't know, a year ago, I got Caleb Calhoun a shirt that was it was an Off the Hook sports shirt that he could wear during the show. He has worn it approximately 3 times in that year, and today he decides to wear it, and I wear the very same shirt. So no, this was not orchestrated. No, this is a little odd. But we are wearing the same shirt on the show today. Caleb, what made you decide to pick out the fantastic shirt that I gave you? What was it, a year ago? It's been a while.
Yeah, well, okay, so my thing is when I wear the Off the Hook collared shirts, I like to be all, put on, make some fashion statements when I dress each day. And I love to do that. But then I do that. But I'm sorry?
Is that what you do? That's your fashion statement.
Yes, but I like to wear the Off the Hook collared shirt typically if I'm going live after a game that we covered. You know what I mean? If I'm doing a breaking news story that's not part of the show itself. Does that make sense? That's what I usually like to wear it. But I realized I hadn't done one of those in a while. I hadn't done a live breaking in a while, and I hadn't really done a game recap. And I'm like, you know what? I need to throw on this Off the Hook shirt today. So that's where it came from.
Well, you look fantastic in it. So we've got a lot coming up on the program today, including the EA Sports selection. Let's just say they did a Tennessee game only. Who would be on the cover? Because we know Saquon Barkley and his backwards hurdle is going to be on the front of the NFL game. So I'm curious who would be the face of the program for Tennessee. We'll get into that this day in Tennessee sports history. Also, stat of the day. And there is a realistic chance that the Tennessee-Alabama game rivalry will be no more. That's odd. Speaking of odd recruiting stories that have surfaced from Lane Kiffin. We'll get to that on the program. Also, coming up a little bit later, I think the Big Ten is absolutely trying to, as you put on our rundown, stick it to the SEC. But that doesn't surprise me. There's a healthy competitive nature there, Caleb. I think, though, that it may not be best for the sport because I think that it's going to rule out the rest of the teams in the other Power 4 conferences. That's just my hunch. It feels like the teams that are in with the Big Ten and in with the SEC right now will be the teams that we see in a power conference. And let me just tell you, that's going to happen. I mean, it's not sort of, kinda. It's a matter of time. And I'd say within 5 years, it's going to happen. So I don't know what that does for the other Power 5 conferences Power 4, because it feels like the SEC and Big Ten are actually a Power 2, Caleb.
I thought it was that, and I thought they were going to work together. But what we're going to talk about at the end of the show is that, guys, I just came across this last night. I was going to write a column on it. You ever have a column that comes to your mind immediately?
Yeah, but let me be real clear. I don't think work together, they can compete like runners and still outpace the competition.
Right. But what I came across last night, and again, just totally random, doing exhaustive Wikipedia and ESPN.com research on college football for fun, like I do, because I'm weird like that. I just came across a little bit of data that, put it this way, the Big Ten's proposed playoff model would do nothing to help the Big Ten. It would only hurt the SEC. That's weird to me.
But doesn't hurting the SEC help the Big Ten?
If they were coming together on a format for healthy competition, then they would have the competition. But I'll break it down, but it's a little weird. It's very clear that, and I'm not saying the SEC does everything right because Greg Sankey, I've criticized his deals with ESPN. I don't think he's been forward thinking, However, it's clear that when the SEC makes decisions, they make it for themselves, period. It's clear that when the Big Ten makes decisions, they think about what the SEC is doing. I'll break it down, guys, but it is as clear as day that the Big Ten, what they're fighting for is more about holding back the SEC than helping themselves. And maybe there's some history with that too, which we'll get into.
Well, there is, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but I don't even think it's close. The fifth best team in the SEC from year to year is far better than the fifth best team in the Big Ten, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Big Ten, I've always said this, and even last year, people talk about, the Big Ten's got back-to-back national titles. I think you and I agree, Dave, like 1 through typically 4 in the Big Ten rivals 1 through 4 in the SEC, right? They're about on the same level. Maybe 1 through 2, maybe 1 through 3.
Yeah, I'd probably go 1 through 3, but go ahead.
1 through 3, same level. 4 depends on the year, right? It's debatable depending on the year. Once you hit 5, I mean, I'm sorry, like 5 to 16 or 5 to 18 last year, the SEC was so much tougher 4 to 16, but definitely 5 to 16 than the Big Ten was 5 to 18. It wasn't even close. Once you got past those top 4 teams in the Big Ten, there was just nobody.
All right. Derek already says getting rid of Bama and Tennessee, I'm out. I hope you're not out on this program because I'm going to argue that absolutely should be sacred ground, and we'll get to that. But if you're out on college football because of lack of tradition, well, at some point, if that's your stance, you're going to be lack on college football because of tradition. Excuse me, you're out on college football because of lack of tradition. At some point, you're going to have an issue there because the traditions keep sliding by the wayside. Today's tough question go ahead.
I'm just going to say, this is my thing with fans. Fans argue for something to happen in college football. College football does it. It kills a tradition, and then they're mad that the tradition was killed. You can't hold tradition dear and want the changes you want in college football. It's one or the other. You can't have a playoff and have rivalries be sacred. Sorry, I warned you guys about it. It's over. Rivalries are no longer sacred because we have a playoff.
We'll discuss that. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And today's tough question, we'll make it a poll question as well, is this. Will Tennessee have to win games with defense next year? They did that last year, which if I would have told you before last season that was going to be the case, you would have absolutely said I was crazy. You would have said, this is Josh Heupel. This is another great quarterback in Nico Iamaleava following up Hendon Hooker a couple of years ago. Joe Milton was an aberration. Everybody's all on board with the offense. At least they were last year. And how did they win games? They won games a lot on defense, and their defense at times was dominant. Maybe better for the program, but I'm curious if Tennessee goes in that direction or that was a one-year thing. Ideally, of course, it would be both. You'd have an explosive offense and a dominant defense, but that doesn't happen a lot, especially with the way that college football has changed in terms of the transfer portal and the fact that NIL money means that more people can dole out some cash, and you've got the leveling of the playing field. I don't think that the elite teams, say Ohio State's an elite team last year, or Alabama or Georgia last year, I don't think that they are separated nearly as far as Alabama was in its heyday under Nick Saban. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Will Tennessee have to win games with defense this season?
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, do you think Tennessee will have to win games with its defense? And let's be clear, we're not talking about the Syracuses of the world, teams that Tennessee should just clearly be better than and win pretty easily. And there's some SEC teams like that. But let's talk about the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, even maybe the Floridas of the world. Should Tennessee will Tennessee have to win games with defense this season, or does the offense return to 2022 form?
This is going to be one of my hotter takes, but because I missed on this last year, and I acknowledge I missed on this last year, but I think the offense is returning to 2022 form. And I got a few reasons for that. And here's what I think is going to, there's a few reasons I think the offense is going to return to 2022 form, Dave, actually. One, I think Joey Aguilar has a better chance of being a better fit for the system than Nico, because I can't believe I said that because of Nico, what I said about him all last year. And I get it. Nico as a decision maker, though, doesn't fit the offense as well because he's not willing to take risk with his throws. I think Joey Aguilar's willingness to take risk will allow receivers to make a lot of plays more. That's the first part. The second part, I think Joey Aguilar is going to be better protected passing the ball because David Sanders and a healthy Lance Hurd are going to be better than a sprained ankle John Campbell and a sprained ankle Lance Hurd last year. Also, I think Tennessee is going to be significantly better at receiver. You know, you ever read those magazines, Dave, and you're like, they lost this many starters at this position. They're just not going to be as good next year. And it's like, well, maybe the people behind them are better. And that's the case to me for the receivers. I think the entire receiving core that's stepping in is better than the receiving core last year. So I think they're going to have a huge upgrade at receiver. Lastly, and this is a big one, there's two other things beyond this. Heupel brought in Seth Littrell from Oklahoma. Obviously not a good offensive coordinator. He was fired last year coaching under Brent Venables. But you could also say that maybe because what Brent Venables was trying to do clashed with what Seth Littrell was trying to do. But Heupel's trying to adjust to the 3-3-5 shell defenses teams run against him. He spent all offseason, from what I've heard, trying to figure out ways to adjust and tweak his offense to make sure it can fit with what they're doing. And I think you're not going to see that shell defense as much this year, Dave, because Dylan Sampson just set the school record for rushing yards and touchdowns. I think teams don't want to get gashed on the ground now. And finally, and this is a big one, the NCAA's new injury rule that they're working on, where players have to come out for a period of time if they're down. They're not going to be able to fake injuries, so the tempo is going to return to Tennessee's offense. All of that cobbled together should lead to the offense being significantly better, even if Joey Aguilar is not as good of a passer as Nico Iamaleava was.
Okay, I can't flow with you there. I'm gonna tell you that I think that Tennessee has a quarterback issue. I don't think they're going to get great quarterback play in September, and who knows if they'll get great quarterback play the rest of the season. I think there's an issue with Alex Golesh going to South Florida. I think there's an issue with the offensive staff. I think we've learned that Josh Heupel is great at game planning. He's great at putting together a scheme, but I don't know that he's great from a play calling standpoint. I don't know that he's great from a developing quarterback standpoint. It's not a knock. I still think he's a B plus, maybe even. But I don't know that Joey Aguilar is going to turn into a fantastic quarterback in the coming months. That just seems like a reach to me in the SEC. Our poll question, vote on YouTube. Will the defense have to carry Tennessee again in 2025? 90% say yes, Caleb. So 90% disagree with you. 10% say no. The Josh Heupel offense is back. I think there's a little bit of wishful thinking there. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Discuss more about Tennessee's defense and why I think it can be really, really good. And I don't think that it peaked last year. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Again, they are a Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, and an absolutely incredible selection, great customer service. Today's tough question, more on Tennessee's defense, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year.
Sorry, that wasn't supposed to play. All right, so some highlights from Tennessee's starting lineup. on defense, Boo Carter is going to be that much better. Ricky Gibson, I believe, will be significantly better. Dominique Bailey, Jackson Moy on the defensive line. To some extent, Bryson Eason and Joshua Josephs were borderline starters last year. I like Jeremiah Tellender. I really do. And I think Arian Carter, we'll discuss him in a second when we talk about the front of the EA Sports game. If they had a Tennessee Sports game alone, I think Arian Carter is on the borderline of being a star. So, Caleb, I think the defense carries this team again. Offensively, and you brought up some great points, but offensively, where's the upgrade? It's not going to be a running back. Dylan Sampson's gone. In retrospect, maybe it is at receiver because Tennessee didn't get what they thought they would get, and they'll bring in Mike Matthews for a second season, Chris Brazel for a second season. He's a junior. So I think they take a step, and I do think that it takes a season to get accustomed to this offense. And then up front, Lance Hurd should be better at tackle. The other tackle position you would think would be David Sanders Jr. I believe in one of those. I believe in Hurd year number 2. I'm not sure about Sanders yet. I just I don't see this offense taking a step, whereas I see this defense maintaining a high level of success.
So here's one of the things that I would have to say. Now, I don't want to be too negative on the defense. I was really talking positively about the offense, but I do have to bring this up, which is that Tennessee. The Tennessee defense, in particular, at cornerback, I'm going to see a drop off this year because Jamal McCoy's not going to be healthy the first month of the season. I think Jamal McCoy altered the entire defense last year. I also think that, given the way they talked about Joshua Josephs, he's pretty much in line to replace James Pierce, no questions asked. And the reason that's a big deal to me, Dave, is because whatever you think of how James Pierce was used, and maybe you think he was misused, and I know you do, and that's fair. But at the same time, he still is significantly more impactful than Joshua Josephs is going to be. I have no faith in Joshua Josephs to come close to the level of James Pierce. I have faith in Jordan Ross, but not Joshua Josephs. I think Joshua Josephs is more of a body. So you lose an edge rusher that alters the entire offensive line's blocking schemes. You don't have a lockdown corner at 100%, which changes how teams throw the ball. That changes everything about your defense. I agree with you about Arian Carter, by the way. He's going to be a stud. I see All-American potential in him. But I see a bit of a drop-off with the defense early. And meanwhile, I'm sorry, I don't see how the offense isn't – we're underrating the new injury rule. That's honestly that's a huge part of this. The tempo is going to be able to come back for Tennessee. Everybody was talking about, people figured out the Heupel offense and things like that. But no, it's not that. It's that players realize fake the injuries. And so Heupel had to slow things down. He can bring his tempo back next year. And again, I don't think you're going to see the same shell defenses because of what you just brought up about Dylan Sampson. Dave, I'm going to ask you this, and we love Dylan Sampson, all the respect in the world to him. Give me a power ranking real quick of the biggest reason Dylan Sampson set the school record for rushing touchdowns and rushing yards. These 3 things. The interior offensive line was elite. Teams sold out to let Tennessee run the ball because they didn't want to give up the pass. And Dylan Sampson's abilities.
I would go Sampson's ability, sell out to stop the pass, and then what was the third?
Interior blocking.
I would interior blocking is pretty good. I might put interior blocking number 2.
You think so?
I think you've undersold Sampson again.
I love the way Sampson ran. I think it had way more to do with the way teams sold out to stop the pass last year. I do. I think teams sold out to take away the passing game, which opened things up so much for Dylan Sampson. And luckily for Josh Heupel and luckily for Tennessee, Josh Heupel's not Steve Spurrier, which is Josh Heupel was willing to just keep it on. He basically said, if you're going to do that, I'll go 12 personnel and keep it on the ground the whole game. I don't care. And teams did that. So I think Sampson is a good running back, runs very hard. I root for him in the NFL, but his record-setting production. I mean, Dave, do you really consider him the most talented running back in Tennessee football history? Because I don't.
Well, no, but he doesn't have to be that to be a dominant running back. I
No,
mean,
but to have the most
the guys that I've covered, you got to remember that stretches back to 98, and I followed Tennessee even before that in the late 80s. I think he's top 10, and that's saying something.
Yes, but but then how do you go from top 10 to warrant the greatest production in the history of Tennessee? That's because of how teams play defense. More than anything, they sold out. I mean, you know this. You covered the year. Whose record did Dylan Sampson break? He broke Travis Stevens' record.
True.
Well, why did Travis Stevens set that record? All due respect to how hard he ran, but it's a little easy to set that record when teams got to account for Dante Stallworth, Kelly Washington, and Jason Witten, isn't it? In the passing game,
Some truth to that. All right, so let's change gears a little bit. I like the makeup of this offense because it doesn't have a superstar. If you had Nico coming back, he'd be making $500 million in a summer. He would be the guy that everybody's pointing to. And I don't care what you say. There's going to be, among 85 scholarship players, there's going to be some resentment with something like that. And it's probably exacerbated by the fact that you have NIL now, and he's making a ton of money and a ton more money than everybody else. The psychological makeup, maybe, of this team, I really like, because I don't know that there's necessarily a superstar. I think that Arian Carter might end up being the best player moving forward, let's say in the NFL, if you want to use that as a judge or a determining factor. But I think Arian Carter's, from what I've been told, a very selfless player. So I think this program might not have a superstar, but it has a bunch of stars, which is probably the best way to go.
I mean, we need to go back. That's exactly how the 98 team was, wasn't it? Yep. And you're right. And I think the program overall here's the way I think this works. I do think this is a big deal from I guess you could say, subconscious perspective for a team. When you don't have a bunch of superstars, I think everybody steps up their level of play to a certain degree. I think the 90, and you could tell me more because you covered these teams to a certain, well, you covered the 98 team. Doesn't it feel like, looking back, one of the reasons the 98 team was so successful, a lot of players knew they had to step up a notch because they couldn't fall back and rely on Peyton Manning towards the end?
Absolutely. There was no resentment for Peyton Manning when he was the quarterback in 97. I mean, I've asked almost every single player on that roster. There was no resentment for the amount of attention he got because he was such a hard worker. But did you feel the pressure a little bit in 98? Sure you did. And you stepped up your play. I think that also you had great leadership with an Al Wilson and other guys that said to everyone, hey, we're not going to get embarrassed just because Peyton's gone. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, there were a ton of superstars that moved on to the NFL that year. Leonard Little, Terry Fair, Marcus Nash. I mean, there were a bunch of guys. And listen, if Tennessee's football team in 98 didn't show up in the offseason, they were going to get embarrassed in the 98 season. That seems weird to say in retrospect, but they busted their rear from day number one.
They just started the year 0-2. I mean, they would have lost to Syracuse and Florida. And I mean, you know this, Dave, one loss can send a spiral. What happens if the narrative is Tennessee can't recover from Peyton Manning? Then they start 0-2. Oh my gosh, the team would borderline quit on the season at that point, right?
I know it sounds insane to say it, but it may have been a 7-5 team if they didn't step up in the offseason. I firmly believe that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And the same thing happened in the season, because you saw this when Jamal Lewis went down. The team stepped up their play even more at other positions, because I mean, a lot of up until 2005, the offense. Not 2005, up until the Georgia game that year, Game 5, the offense was just falling back on Jamal Lewis and letting him carry the show. And then that's when T. Martin really got going.
Yep, agree with that. All right, Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Which Vol will be featured on the video game cover for 2025, or magazine covers, if you remember going to pick up Lindy's in your local grocery store?
Which Vol should be, I guess, is the question.
Oh, what did I say?
You said will be. It should be. Sorry to grammatically correct you.
I'll go ahead and say will be. I'll go ahead and tell you who it is.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. CityHeatAndAir.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, go ahead and throw on the message board if there's a player that you believe should be the featured Vol. And you don't want a featured person necessarily. We just talked about that with Peyton Manning, but somebody's going to be put on the cover of magazines that are in your local grocery store. Somebody's going to be the featured Vol that somebody like a network breaks down before the opening game against Syracuse. So let's throw some names out there and we'll see if Caleb and I agree. So we've got about 7 names, but we want to hear from you. Dan will go ahead and start us off with Boo Carter. Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Caleb. Tell me, because I'm having some board problems.
Boo Carter's hot. Yes, two-way player. They're going to market him like Travis Hunter. Absolutely, put him on the cover. Put him on the cover. We need Ronaldo Woolridge, Swiper Boy, to come back and do a song for him. Okay, I'm all in on Boo Carter.
He won't be because he's a sophomore, but if he's a defensive back. But if he were to be, that wouldn't be a bad move. Dan says Dave Hooker. Okay, well, maybe we can work that out. I don't know that that Lindy's, or what was the other one?
Sporting News, Lindy's, Phil Steele,
Athlon. And then Phil Steele came along a little bit later and was like so in depth it was insane and used all those acronyms that were really odd. And
his metrics were incredible.
His metrics were incredible, but all the acronyms made it a little difficult to read. No offense to that man. All right, so other guys, give me some other guys that could be on the cover. I don't know that they are going to be, but I don't know there's a good candidate that could be a featured Vol this season. It just seems like a more team-like atmosphere than heading into last season with Nico.
Mike Matthews, should he be on a cover, or is that too risky because he hasn't started?
No, too soon.
Cold.
Too soon.
Ice cold.
That's cold. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Cold as ice. Chomping broccoli. All right. I know he's banged up to start the year, but they do expect him to be.
Was that a Dana Carvey reference? Chopping broccoli.
Yes.
Chopping broccoli. All
right. Jermon McCoy.
That's hot.
I'm good with Jermon McCoy. If he were 100% healthy, but I don't think he's healthy. Next up is the guy that I think is or should be the featured player, and that's Arian Carter.
That's hot.
I don't understand how you could pick anybody else, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Arian Carter's an obvious one. I mean, Boo Carter, you could pick. I mean, Arian and Boo Carter, the 2 returning starters who are 100% on this list that I've named so far.
I don't think college football Joe that lives in southern Mississippi knows necessarily who Boo Carter is. I think
you think college football Joe knows Arian Carter more than Boo Carter?
Yeah, I do. He started like 12 more games.
No, Boo started every game last year.
Well, Arian Carter started 2 seasons.
No, he played 2 seasons ago. But remember, you had, I'm trying to remember who you had at linebacker that year, because Keenan Peely went down at the beginning. You had Elijah Herring and Aaron Beasley that year starting. Should have been Arian Carter. I mean, but hype went with seniority.
Okay, we'll get to some other guys. Again, Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Do you like how that I just left my name up there that somebody posted? And no, I didn't purposefully mispronounce Jeremiah T-Lander's name. I love that young man. I absolutely slipped there. Derek says he thinks it'll be Arian Carter as well. Again, City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Absolutely take care of your HVAC needs, and they'll do it in a fair way. They'll make sure that you don't overpay. I can't say that for anybody else in East Tennessee.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Peyton Lewis. I don't see this one. You?
No, I'm cold on that. I'm high on Peyton Lewis as a player. I think he's going to be a really good player this year, but I'm cold on him starting. I think Peyton Lewis has more full-on physical abilities than Dylan Sampson. Now, does he run as hard as Dylan Sampson?
Yeah, basically every player that we mentioned is, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we both believe will be very good. We just don't know that they'll be superstar status in terms of coverage. Now, we may see that McCoy come back from injury, or Carter or Joey Aguilar turn into superstars, but we're talking about superstar coverage as well. Who would be on the front of a magazine or video game? All right, Joey Aguilar.
I mean, talk superstar coverage. Joey Aguilar, if he's the starter at Tennessee, and if the offense returns to form, Joey Aguilar will be competing to go to New York in November. So if Hendon Hooker's any indication.
Yeah, but we're talking about preseason. The magazines,
yes.
the video games. I mean,
look, you can't do Joey Aguilar because where are you going to get him in a Tennessee jersey? He hasn't played one game in a Tennessee jersey yet. You're going to put him in an Appalachian State jersey on the cover of the magazine?
Be pretty awesome. Anybody else that is out there, if you want to go ahead and throw it in the message board, we'll give it a shout out. But do you believe?
Yeah, I set up.
Go ahead.
I've set up the poll question that way, where I said who should represent the Vols on magazine covers this year, and it's Arian Carter, Boo Carter, Jamal McCoy, or somebody on offense, basically. What about Chris? Arian Carter, Boo Carter, Jamal McCoy, or somebody on offense? Now, what about, and we haven't mentioned him, Dave, but he is the one returning major contributor at receiver this year. What about Chris Brazzell? I mean, last year he did have 333 receiving yards, didn't have a touch, or had 2 touchdowns. So
here's who I think it should be, and here's who I think it will be. I think Boo Carter has the most upside, and it should be him. If I were whoever puts together the EA Sports game, and I wanted to be ahead of the curve and look back into August and say, look what I did, and it's December or January, I would put Boo Carter on there. But I think the safe pick and a solid pick is Arian Carter. You?
I think Arian Carter is a solid pick. I mean, I also think Arian Carter is just Is he going to be the first all-American caliber Tennessee linebacker? Is he going to be the best Tennessee linebacker since Kevin Burnett? Can he reach Kevin Burnett level?
He'll be right there.
I think so too.
And I told you that about Dylan Sampson before last season. I mean, this is coming from inside the program. I'm not making this stuff up.
You said this about James Pierce 2 years ago too.
Yeah, Arian Carter is going to be a special player. He's going to be first team all SEC. So if it's determined by an editor or whoever is putting together these covers and sorts of things, they may be a little more conservative. They may pick a quarterback just because it's easy. They may, I don't know who else you would pick as far as the skill position player, but they may go in that direction. But who they should go, the best player with this season will be Arian Carter. The player with the most upside, if you want to gamble a little bit, throw the dice like in Vegas, is going to be Boo Carter. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Think about that for a second. You walk onto that lot and you find cars that you absolutely love that are new, that are certified used, or the pre-owned, and you absolutely get a fantastic deal, and you get customer service that is through the roof. I love my Jeep. I bought it at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, Parkside Drive, and Kingston Pike. So check them out. 2 minutes off the hook. Sports, this day in Tennessee sports history coming up. And also, why the Alabama rivalry. Caleb's going to bring up a great point. It may likely go away, and that's frustrating. We'll discuss with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, off Fox.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln, Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
According to a poster here, which is Vols win. Come on, Caleb, don't curse Joey like you did Nico last year. Well, you did. You just threw the baby out with the bathwater.
I did not curse Nico. You guys are crazy for that. I didn't curse Nico. Whatever.
You know the baby? Do you know where the baby out with the bathwater comes from? I saw this on Joe Rogan recently.
No, where does it come from?
Okay, so people would only bathe once a year. That's why weddings are held in June, because they would bathe in June. And the baby, bathing once a year, the baby was the last to take a bath. So when you would throw the bath water out, because it was nasty, because everybody had bathed in it and hadn't bathed for the past year, you didn't want to throw the baby out. Is that not the weirdest thing you've ever heard in your life?
That's really weird. That's really weird.
I just heard that this morning at like 6 a.m. before I went to the gym. All right. Adam says, Boo has the personality to match his explosive play. He'll steal the show if he has a good season, even if someone else is a better NFL prospect. I don't think there's a better NFL prospect in the entire roster. So I'll say that. I also think that he's a defensive back at least 75% of the time, right, Caleb? And it's tough to be on magazine covers as a defensive back.
You think Boo's a defensive back set? Yeah, yes, it is. Unless you have to be like a full-time offensive player. And I mean, Boo's not that. So, yeah, I don't think Boo is somebody that we're going to sit up there and look at and say, he hasn't, I guess to put it this way, he hasn't proven himself as an offensive player. So you can't put him on the cover because you hope he becomes an offensive player. You see what I'm saying?
Right. So, if you're one of the editors at Athlon or Lindy's or this time in Tennessee football, and you do that, you look like an idiot if he doesn't live up to the billing short of injury. Unsug says Caleb is an innocent angel.
I am. Thank you. I'm very innocent.
Steve says he's bathing this month. That's the crazy part, is it wasn't just a month. It was a year. A year. What's the longest you can go without bathing? Let's make that a poll question. Can you? What's the longest you can go without bathing? Is it?
I will say this:
one day per week or 1 month.
The COVID and work from home culture that started after COVID that affected me, like a bunch of other people, really reduced my shower usage. The way it I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It wasn't like it used to be where I showered every day before work, and it's but now I never go into an office for anything.
I used to shower before the gym and after the gym.
That's weird. You showered before the gym?
Yeah.
Can I tell you the trick for me? Here's a crazy thing for me. And this is a tricky part for me. I like to work out and then I like to go to my pool. You're supposed to shower after you swim and you work out, you're supposed to shower a reasonable time after you work out. But there's like a 3-hour window between when I work out and when I go to the pool. When am I supposed to, am I supposed to shower just twice that day?
Yeah, what's wrong with your showers?
It's bad for your skin to shower twice a day. It is.
I think I have kind of oily skin, so I think it's good for it, actually. I think it depends on who you are. Well, we were off topic. Nathaniel says after a week-long camping trip, you really feel it. Can't even imagine, because I still have to shower once a day, not necessarily 2 times a day like I used to.
Yeah. Oh man, a week-long camping trip.
Ugh. Are you a camper? I have to go to a hotel. I mean, I have to be in a hotel and take a hot shower once a day.
I mean, I'm with you on that. I kind of do too. But yes, it's I like camping. My wife is not a camper, so we don't camp much, unfortunately.
Yeah. If your wife doesn't like something, you don't like something. This day in Tennessee sports history is right now. It's brought to you by Sports Treasures. If you haven't been to Sports Treasures, you need to go, because Sports Treasures is one of the most phenomenal stores I've ever been in, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. The link is right down below. This day in Tennessee football history is brought to you by Tennessee sports history, I should say, is brought to you by Sports Treasures.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
What do you got, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history?
On this day, 3 years ago, Tennessee baseball scored 6 runs in the 9th inning to come back to beat Georgia Tech 9-6 and clinch a trip to the Super Regionals. It was their 2nd straight trip to the NCAA Super Regionals, the first time in school history that the baseball team made Super Regionals 2 years in a row. Now, this was that team that was just flexing its muscles on everybody and thumbing its nose, and then they got upset in the Super Regionals. But they still made history.
Let me make a bold statement here. Tennessee's baseball team is at the same level of Alabama's football team under Nick Saban. Now, I say that because the postseason in college baseball is so goofy. So, in football, you're the better. I think we would both agree the better team wins. The more talented team wins. 7.5, 8 out of times. When
oh yeah, yes, 10. Definitely.
In baseball, it's what? 6, maybe. So yeah,
not even that. It's 6 out of 10. Yeah.
You have that much more exposure to lose. But I'll go ahead and say it, and maybe it's a column later today. Tennessee's baseball team is every bit as dominant as Alabama's football team. You are in the middle of the very same thing that Alabama football fans went through.
You are, and my brother and I were texting yesterday, and you're going to love this.
I think you would agree with that.
No, I totally agree with you on that in terms of the level. That doesn't mean they're going to win the same number of titles, because you're right, it's such a crapshoot. But I want to give you I just have to tell you this, Dave. I was texting my brother yesterday, and we were having some fun because you know how Tennessee is doing extremely well with baseball? The level of hate there is for Tony Vitello. I've told you, what's the easiest giveaway that you did not hire the right coach? Your rival fan bases speak highly of him. I mean, that is the story of Rick Pitino. I'll just stick with Wade Houston one more year, guys. He's going to do it for you. And I will never forget when I was at the 13 men on the field Tennessee LSU game. When
you were at that game?
I was at that game, yeah.
Okay.
And I will never forget, after it happened, an LSU, because I was a Tennessee fan at the time, and an LSU fan looks at me after the heartbreaking loss where Tennessee lost when they should have won. LSU fan looks at me and goes, "Y'all stick with Dooley. He's going to be a really good coach for y'all." I'm like, okay, sure. Okay. And Nick Saban spent like 4 years saying, Derek Dooley's got that program on the right track. Let me tell you, I wonder why Nick Saban was saying that.
Can I tell you a little bit of behind the scenes on that play? Would you like to hear that?
Sure.
Okay. Tennessee's defensive line coach, it was Dooley's best friend. What's his name again?
Oh, Chuck Smith.
Chuck Smith. He's the one who sent, I think, 58 defensive linemen on the field. Did you know, I couldn't report this at the time because I couldn't absolutely prove it. But from that point forward, because I was able to confirm it after the season, but then it was old news. But at that point, Lance Thompson, who actually celebrated a birthday yesterday. Lance Thompson was given the entire front 7-8 of the defense from that point forward. Chuck Smith essentially stood on the sidelines and did nothing.
Well, I knew that he and Chuck Smith had a very bitter departure at the end of that year. Chuck Smith was not a fan, spoke very lowly and negatively about Derek Dooley as they departed. So that explains
Chuck
why.
Smith, and y'all can Google this. Maybe we can make a link. Chuck Smith held his own press conference in front of Neyland Stadium at a bus stop with 5 or 6 reporters, including me, and just ripped everybody and said, I'm all Tennessee and you don't appreciate me, basically was the gist of it. And then he went to the coach's office, and I was told again by a very good source, he went through there's a hall through the coach's office, and you got right coach, left coach on the doors. And he went through the hall and started screaming at various coaches, including Derek Dooley, and said, I'm going to whip your rear. And several coaches that he was after actually closed their door and locked it because they were afraid.
Oh my gosh, really?
True story. That's a true story.
Well, Derek Dooley was not going to stand a chance against Chuck Smith.
You can actually, if you Google Chuck Smith press conference, Neyland Stadium, we can play a moment of it. And it is absolutely one of the most surreal things I've ever been a part of. Literally, we had a press conference at a bus stop. In the background, you can hear buses taking off, Caleb. No exaggeration. You need to watch this video. It's one of the funniest things you'd ever seen. Chuck Smith also probably the only person that I've interviewed that's so intense I felt like I wanted to have a panic attack at times being face-to-face with him. It was just because he was like all in your face. All right. Tennessee, the SEC may go to a 2-6 format. That probably means that the Vols are going to lose a rivalry. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. So which rivalry should they lose? Let's start with Florida. If they have to drop a rivalry and it's Florida, I never thought I would say this, Caleb, but I have zero problem with it. Because I don't think Florida is going to be at the level they were under Steve Spurrier. There's not an SEC East to be won anymore. Again, if you'd have told me 10 years ago I was saying this, I was like, Dave's an idiot. But I don't have a problem if the Florida rivalry goes away.
Well, and as I said on the 4 Downs that we're going to get to, and it's because you're going to have to drop 2 rivalries if it's a 2+6. And the 2+6 is going to look more likely because they can't get everybody to agree to a 9-game schedule right now. The Florida rivalry has to be the first to go. And because Dave, even if you do a 3+6, if you do go to 9 games and it's 3+6, you still might lose Florida if you're Tennessee, right? Like, I mean, I don't see how they keep them, honestly. So I think no matter how you do it, I think the Florida rivalry is gone. And I don't think people really look, that was a rivalry of value and what matters, but there's nothing regional about it. It was just those 2 teams happened to be at an apex at the same time. It's the same of like Alabama LSU. Yeah, that's a rivalry right now, but like that wasn't a rivalry in the 90s, or the 80s. So yeah, that's where I kind of land with that.
Now, if you're 70 plus, Vanderbilt was a rivalry. I would actually argue that Tennessee, let's go from a recruiting perspective, because that's what I covered for so long, that Tennessee would rather lose the Florida rivalry than the Vanderbilt rivalry because of the talent level. Now, I know you've knocked the talent level in the mid-state area that it hasn't produced, and you're right to a large extent. But when you talk about Florida, Florida is not Miami. Florida is a rural area, and I've been there several times covering games. Florida is a rural area that just doesn't have the same level of talent as South Florida. And I could quickly argue, and I don't know if you've been to Gainesville, but probably have, it's probably doesn't have the same talent level as an exploding population in the Nashville area.
No, it doesn't. Gainesville absolutely doesn't. Again, you're right. If you want to, your best chance in Gainesville, if you go there, is to make a detour to Tampa, isn't it? To try to get talent from that. But you're better off playing at Florida State than Gainesville, because Florida State's at least in the Florida Panhandle. And for those who don't know, Florida Panhandle is a rare gem of high school football talent, of just like freak athletes, honestly. But Gainesville's not in the Panhandle. It's a little further south, and it's closer to the Gulf Coast. But it's inland. There is not a lot of it's not like you're going to be able to make a recruiting stop when you're doing a trip to Florida.
Now, in all fairness, you can go to Jacksonville, but still, you're talking about 2-hour drives, probably a little more with the Panhandle. So.
Yeah, and you're not about to do that when you're on a football trip that week.
Yeah, well, I mean, if let's say the exposure that you would get in Gainesville if you're a school like Tennessee, if you're a superstar football player in that area and you're willing to make the move, then first of all, you probably are more likely to make the move to a Miami or a Florida State or stay at Florida. But if you're willing to make the move to Tennessee, that opens up every other program. The next one yes.
Just for the record, for those who are questioning, the Vanderbilt rivalry is never going away because the SEC, when they do this format, someone's got to play Vanderbilt annually, and they're going to pick the team that shares the state with Vanderbilt to do that. They're not going to get rid of an in-state series.
No, agree. Then Kentucky. This rivalry has never done anything for me. As a matter of fact, maybe because it was the end of the season, I didn't want to cover it half the time. So if it goes away, and then we'll give our two, but we want to break them each down one by one, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I got no problem with the Kentucky game going away.
I mean, I don't either. I got no problem. Look, I don't understand to this day when the SEC formed how Kentucky was part of it. They never felt SEC to me, honestly. You got to go up north to Lexington. It feels more almost borderline Big Ten country than it is SEC country to me. They academically wouldn't fit in the Big Ten, but I think that I don't really mind seeing Kentucky go. However, I'm only thinking about this, and we're going to get to it in a second. I'm only thinking about this from Tennessee's perspective and what's best for Tennessee. And what's best for Tennessee is if Vanderbilt and Kentucky stay on the list.
Well, all right. We're going to get into a sensitive subject next because Caleb seems to think that the Alabama game should go away. That seems almost insane to me. It is Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. They have 2 locations, and the customer service will absolutely blow you away. It is Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln at the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
Cooper Mace here. Hit like and subscribe.
Do it, Coop. All right. I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead and bear yourself, and with those that are fans of Caleb Calhoun, but go ahead and do it. The Alabama rivalry should fall off the schedule.
What? To quote a famous black Nazi, I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay. Kanye?
Yes, that's Kanye. Remember when he stole the mic from Taylor Swift? I'm gonna let you finish.
I don't remember that.
So, okay, here we go. The Alabama rivalry, if it's a 2+6 format, the Florida rivalry's gone, the Georgia rivalry's gone. That's happening. So it's going to come down to Alabama, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. If you're Tennessee, you should be cheering to the high heavens for the Alabama rivalry to get knocked off the list. Completely cheer to the high heavens. Guys, I didn't do this. I'm not responsible for this. I am not at fault. College football and everybody who pushed for an expanded playoff and everybody who pushed for mega conferences is responsible for this, okay? The minute you expanded the college football playoff, you killed the sacred history and tradition of regular season rivalry games. That's why I fought against it so hard. I fought against it completely hard. The only thing that matters in college football now is the playoff. That's the only thing that matters is your positioning for the playoff. We know, based on last year, the selection committee values strength of schedule literally 0, places no value on it. With that in mind, would you not rather just play the easiest SEC slate possible so you could be higher up in the SEC and that automatically gets you into the playoff? Look at Indiana last year. Indiana played a horrible schedule. They played 8 of the 9 worst teams in the Big Ten. They didn't even play a Power 5 team in their non-conference games, and they got rewarded for it. when the one team they played, Ohio State, they got blown out by the one time they played a good team. I'm sorry. If you're Tennessee, maximizing your odds of success matter more than tradition at that point. I don't blame Tennessee for that. I blame everybody who wanted a college football playoff and everybody who wanted an expanded playoff. You cannot come to me about the importance of tradition when you threw tradition out the minute you wanted an expanded playoff. Dave would say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You threw them both out once you had an expanded playoff. You killed tradition. It's over. And because it's over, I'm sorry, you should want the best path to make the playoff and have a high seed. And that path involves not having to play Alabama every year. I'm sorry. I didn't kill tradition. I do value it, but you can't cling to tradition and embrace this expanded playoff. You can't. They can't coexist.
I'd like to expand your role a little bit. Can you read the post that's on the screen for the message board?
Crazy Caleb and his liberal hot takes. What's liberal about this? Or conservative? I mean, nothing's liberal or conservative.
It's just funny. And the next one?
Caleb has lost his mind. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't devalue the regular season. Some people I see are like, we need some fun games in the regular season. Why? College football has made it all about the playoff now. It's the only thing that matters. It's a disgrace to me that Ohio State lost to Michigan and then won the national title. Dave, can you at least acknowledge something looks really odd about that? That Ohio State gets to celebrate a national title when they lost the big game?
Another post on the message board. This is ridiculous. I just can't imagine Tennessee headed into a season without the Alabama rivalry. You may end up being right, but is it not hard for you to wrap your brain around?
I can't imagine it either. And I hate it. I hate it as someone who has watched Tennessee for a long time, but there's rivalries that have to go sometimes. And this is one that would have to be ditched if you are looking out for the best interest of Tennessee. Tennessee should fight like hell to play Vanderbilt and Kentucky every year. Now, if it's a 3+6 format, keep Alabama. A 3+6 9-game format, keep Alabama. But Dave, in a 2+6 format? No, sorry. You keep Vanderbilt and Kentucky. You should want to keep Vanderbilt and Kentucky at all cost. That has been 2 easy wins for Tennessee dating back to 1901. Okay. And it wasn't easy.
What does Ben say, by the way?
Caleb has lost his mind. I'm sorry. You guys, if you fought for an expanded playoff, you fought for the Tennessee-Alabama game to not matter. Just know that that's what you fought for. I didn't fight for it. I never wanted it. I warned everybody this would happen. Okay. But I think it doesn't. You can't put it this way. Let's say, okay, I'm going to run this down real quick, Dave. Let me just give you a hypothetical. Would you say the one rivalry in say the SEC starts expanding and they add UNC? You've heard they really want North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Okay, so say the SEC adds North Carolina, but they don't add Duke. Do you think for a second North Carolina would be like, but the Duke-UNC basketball rivalry matters, so we have to play it?
Yes.
Or do you think, no, they would ditch it. They would ditch it in a heartbeat.
Oh, no. You have more flexibility in scheduling of basketball than
Here's
football.
the thing. No, because here's the point.
I see your argument, but you're arguing apples and oranges.
Nobody cares about the Duke-UNC basketball rivalry because nobody cares about regular season college basketball.
I do. I don't like regular season college basketball, but I go out of my way to watch the North Carolina Duke game because it seems like, and I may be wrong, but 4 times out of 5, it ends up being a great game.
I don't care if it's a great game or not. It means nothing. What matters.
What did the Orange Blood say?
I'm off your Christmas card list. Okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes I got to give the real takes.
What did Dylan say?
I agree, Dylan. I agree. Don't leave the SEC. I said that. Tennessee should bolt the SEC and join a group of 5 school. They'll be the best group of 5 team every year, and they'll be in the playoff every single year. Do it. That's the problem with the expanded playoff. I was trying to tell everybody about this for so long. You should only be thinking. Let me ask you that. Okay, let's take the NFL model for a minute. Dave, do you think the Patriots ever complained about the fact that they played in the weakest division possible for 20 years when Tom Brady was there? Do you think they were like, oh, we don't get fun regular season games. We're so upset that we have to play the Jets twice every year and the Bills twice every year? Or do you think they're like, yes, we get to win our division every year?
A couple of other comments. Adam says, Caleb says there are 2 types of people, wrong people and people who agree with Caleb.
I don't say that, but that's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, probably. And then another post from Ben. Caleb needs to work for Nebraska with his week schedule talk. Derek says, I'm taking my ball and going home. Don't leave the program, Derek. We appreciate you. You're one of our better posters. And also, this Dylan says, speaking of one of our better posters, arguing with Caleb is like shouting into an echo chamber.
Guys, you guys are just coming at me about tradition. What does tradition matter in an expanded playoff? I don't care about tradition in an expanded playoff. I care, if I'm a fan, about the easiest path to the playoff possible. Okay? I'm sorry. That's how I roll. I want the easiest path to the playoff possible. And this whole you should want to play the best. Why if you don't have to? No, you should want to win a championship. I'll just give you a quick history lesson on this, Dave. You remember the Alabama, Oklahoma State, LSU debate over LSU was undefeated. They beat Alabama, who had one loss, and Oklahoma State had one loss. And the debate was, should Alabama or Oklahoma State play LSU for the national title? Remember that?
Yes.
Well, it came down to the coaches poll. Nick Saban and Les Miles both had a vote. Nick Saban was smart. He's like, I'm going to vote my team number 2, and I'm going to put Oklahoma State down at 5th or 6th. Forget 3 because he's going to skew the vote. Les Miles was so dumb. He voted Alabama number 2 because he genuinely thought they deserved to be number 2. And in my mind, I'm like, if you're Les Miles, don't you have an obligation to vote them as low as possible so you don't have to play them again when you know they're better than you?
Fair enough. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. As I want to remind you that Newbrook Collision Center, for nearly 50 years, Newbrook Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbrookCollision.com, JoeNewbrookCollision.com. What do we got coming up on the program, Caleb?
Coming up on the program, we have a hilarious Lane Kiffin, AJ McCarron recruiting story that involved Jeremy Pruitt and Nick Saban. And the Jeremy Pruitt side of the story will not surprise Dave at all, since Dave thinks Jeremy Pruitt's IQ is closer to Ed Orgeron's than it is us.
He was so pliable. I remember doing a radio show with him one time, and he kept saying, no, his opening press conference, he kept saying I. So then following that press conference on the Big Orange Caravan Tour, I happened to be on a radio show that it was his first after that. And about 5 or 6 minutes through, I just had to say it. I was like, Jeremy, you haven't said I yet. And he said, well, no, people didn't like that. I'm like, you don't change who you are because people like it. I know you copied it from Nick Saban, but you don't change who you are because people didn't like it. That to me was weak sauce. 2 minutes off the hook. Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our
Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Going back to our earlier point, Ben had this to say. I could be wrong because I wasn't alive to see it, but we were not insanely good in '98 because of the strength of schedule we had. That's literally why we made it to where we ended up in the BCS. I think they were insanely good.
No, he's saying they were insanely good because they played a tough schedule
in
'98.
I'm not following it. So they played an insanely tough schedule in '97 that made them prepare for '98.
No, I think, Ben, are you saying they got better over the year because they played such a tough schedule? I think that might be what he's saying.
Okay.
But either way, I want to actually address that. I'm glad you brought that up because a couple of things. One, yes, that team was insanely good talent-wise, no matter what. You and I both agree. People in the know knew that team was way better than they were seen nationally, right? From a talent perspective.
Yes.
There's that. And then more importantly,
well, they didn't have an elite quarterback. That was the other thing. When you look at a really talented team, I mean, what talented teams have we looked at that didn't, other than maybe Alabama, because Nick Saban was able to maximize his roster even with average quarterbacks, like we're going to talk about A.J. McCarron. I mean, other than that,
the two LSU teams that won national titles with Saban and Les Miles, they had average quarterback play too.
Okay. Yep. Maybe I'm off base there.
But what I wanted to address with Ben, a couple of things. Ben, it didn't matter. I think you might be referencing that's why Tennessee ended up making it to the BCS national title was that strength of schedule. 2 points. Tennessee was the only undefeated BCS conference team that year. At the end, they were going to the national title, whether or not they played a tough schedule. But more importantly than that, that fuels my point. That was the BCS, where only 2 teams played for the national title. As you know, Dave, when only 2 teams play for the national title, strength of schedule matters, right? The strength of schedule matters significantly. When 12 teams play and you have a committee and no formula, strength of schedule does not matter. I'm saying the reason I'm saying Chuck, Alabama, the committee made it very clear last year. They don't give a you-know-what about strength of schedule. And until they prove that they're going to place a lot more value on that, either by a formula or something, I say formula. Just do the net rankings in college basketball. Do it for college football.
Amen.
Yeah. And until you do a formula, you shouldn't want to play anybody difficult. And that's where I land.
Ben said they got better because it was a hard schedule. Okay, I think that's what Ben's saying now. We're on the same point, or the same stance. They also got better because they knew if they didn't prepare properly from January to August, they were going to be a 4-loss team and look like garbage and get embarrassed.
Yeah, Fulmer will tell you himself that they won that national title in January, right after losing to Nebraska. I mean, that's when they won that national title, was the work ethic they had.
Exactly what Fred White, Al Wilson, Deion Grant told me when I wrote my book. By the way, you can buy that. I'd like to celebrate '98, the behind-the-scenes story of Tennessee's national championship. Lane Kiffin, will he ever win a national championship? Probably not, but he will always be fun to talk about. He was Tennessee's head coach when the Vols were recruiting A.J. McCarron. Now, I covered this team at the time. I didn't know they were in on A.J. McCarron, but the battle for him was pretty strong. Tell this story about a future head coach in Jeremy Pruitt, because this is pretty classic.
Yes, this is actually hilarious. And nothing about this will surprise anybody. So A.J. McCarron was telling the story about his recruitment. And he was talking about Nick Saban apparently reportedly told Jeremy Pruitt, by the way, at the time, Jeremy Pruitt was an off-field staff member. He hadn't even become promoted to head coach at the time, or not head coach, defensive backs coach. This year, he was the director of player development. That's the role he held from 2007 to 2009. Nick Saban sent Jeremy Pruitt to watch A.J. McCarron's house. I mean, stake outside of A.J. McCarron's house, because he was worried that Tennessee would try to swoop in and get him at the last minute. Now, Lane Kiffin, A.J. McCarron committed in February of 2009. Lane Kiffin was hired in December of 2008. As you know, Dave, Lane Kiffin made a lot of last-minute pushes for recruits that year, during those 2 months, didn't he, for his first signing class? And
yeah, he made a lot of pushes and offered a lot of sketchy, questionable scholarships to sketchy players.
Yes. So one of the people he went after hard was A.J. McCarron. Well, that's why Saban knew what Lane Kiffin was doing, and he put Pruitt to stake out A.J. McCarron to make sure Lane Kiffin didn't come and swoop him up. By the way, automatically, that shows the respect Nick Saban had for Lane Kiffin, the recruiter, at age 33 in 2009, that he would worry about losing A.J. McCarron to Tennessee. But then Saban, it turns out A.J. McCarron woke up one morning and Lane Kiffin, Lance Thompson, and the entire Tennessee football staff was outside his house. They banged on his window to try to get to him. That's how committed they were to getting A.J. McCarron. They banged on his window outside his staff. Nick Saban was mad and was like, why the heck was Jeremy Pruitt not there trying to make contact with him too? And Jeremy Pruitt said, I'm sitting outside of McCarron's house. And Nick Saban, according to McCarron, said, no, the hell you're not. Tennessee just left his house. And Pruitt said, nobody's left the house or shown up. But he decided to go check. He knocked on the door, and a little old lady answered. And it turns out Jeremy Pruitt was staking out the wrong house. And yeah.
How in the world could you be at the wrong house in recruiting? And there was GPS at the time. Not like
yes, there was GPS.
Because I'm older than you. I remember pre-GPS when you'd get directions from somebody and you just would 50% of the time end up lost. But there was GPS. I mean, how in the world could you go? And you've got a file, surely to goodness, that a sort of recruiting aide gave you with the exact address on it.
Yes, exactly. So it is insane. It's insane that this happened. And I don't know what story's more insane. How aggressively Lane Kiffin recruited A.J. McCarron or how dumb Jeremy Pruitt was in trying to like stake out his house. Which one is wilder, Dave?
Well, if you start a sentence with how dumb Jeremy Pruitt is, then that's going to be the more applicable and the latter. So that any sentence, if you say the sun's hot or Jeremy Pruitt is dumber, it's the latter.
Okay.
It's always
the latter. Fine, but what's a more shocking story to you? Given what you know about Jeremy Pruitt and Lane Kiffin, which one's more shocking? Lane Kiffin being that aggressive in recruiting or Jeremy Pruitt being that dumb? Neither surprises you probably, given what you know about both of them.
I'll a coin flip, honestly. I mean, I hate to sidestep the question, but literally 50-50.
So
because you might have to remember Lane is thinking to himself, this is my shot. I mean, he was going to go to Washington before Tennessee offered him. He had been at Oakland where Al Davis didn't work out. I mean, if I'm him and his age, how old was he approximately?
Lane Kiffin was 33 at the time.
Okay. If I'm him, even though I'm young, I'm thinking this is my shot. So I'm going to be super aggressive. So if you make me pick between the two, I would probably say that, but Jeremy Pruitt being dumb and at the wrong house is pretty embarrassing.
It is. And apparently you're right. Even if you don't have GPS, you can see the address once you get there, right? So that's still did he never learn how to read a map? So now okay. What do you make of the argument that Lane Kiffin was just trying? He just knew about the type of women A.J. McCarron dated?
I think it was probably with A.J.'s mom.
Okay, A.J.'s mom she's kind of hot, isn't she?
I have no idea. I'm just saying that she's probably a little bit more the age group. Surely to goodness he wasn't trying to steal A.J.'s girlfriends.
I mean, he was waiting until A.J.'s girlfriend was a year older.
Legal.
Yeah. What was it? That same year, a great song by the Young Money Crew led by Lil Wayne came out called How They Are Into Every Girl in the World. And I'm not going to use the vulgar language, but at one point, one of the people in the song says, in about 3 years, holler at me, Miley Cyrus. I kid you not. Someone said that in the song. That was Lane Kiffin. That's how Lane Kiffin lived by. And he was like, in about a year, holler at me, A.J. McCarron's girlfriend. And so, I mean, you know, but
let me do my Brent Musburger impression for a minute.
Okay.
AJ's girlfriend. Wow. Yeah, I'd like to, you know what I mean. That's my impression. Do you remember that in the national championship?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was like, That was one of the weirdest things. The thing I remember the most is after Alabama lost to Auburn during the Kick 6 game. That's my favorite moment in college football. A.J. McCarron didn't even walk off with his teammates. He went over to go hug his girlfriend, his hot girlfriend, for the cameras. And I'm like, he is so... I never liked A.J. McCarron. I think he always thought he was above the rest of the Alabama football team. When in reality, he was just a game manager the whole time. But yeah, it's kind of funny. So A.J. McCarron, I will say... Let me ask this, though. Okay, let's do a hypothetical. Say Lane Kiffin stays at Tennessee and lands A.J. McCarron. Do their fortunes change, or would you say Tyler Bray was better than A.J. McCarron anyway?
We'll discuss. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, discussing Tennessee Bama as What the H, brought to you by our fantastic friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Caleb, I don't think that A.J. McCarron, as opposed to any other quarterback, changes Tennessee's past, what would have been their future at the time, because Tennessee had just too much coaching transition at an administrative level and a coaching level. I don't think anything would have changed that. I think you could have had Joe Montana in his prime, or pick whoever. Maybe like a Cam Newton, a guy that's physically gifted, maybe. But I don't think any of these other guys changed the past at all.
Okay, so, but do you think with this level of aggressive recruiting by Lane Kiffin, is this more proof to you he would have worked out, or is this more proof to you that he would have gotten Tennessee in trouble and flamed out fast?
Now, that's a good question. I think that he would have had success in recruiting and people would have gotten their hopes up and something would have happened off the field.
Okay. Now, since we're comparing the two, who was more reckless off the field, Lane Kiffin or Jeremy Pruitt? Now, we know who's smarter.
How was Jeremy Pruitt reckless?
Sorry?
How was Jeremy Pruitt reckless off the field?
Chick-fil-A cashbacks?
Oh, I thought you meant in Alabama. Sorry.
No. Who was more reckless off the field at Tennessee, Lane Kiffin or Jeremy Pruitt?
Now, that's Pruitt, and I don't even think it's close.
I mean, yeah, but Lane Kiffin, had some, co-ed in his car, and we also know that he had a hostess scandal.
Hasn't been completely reported, even though I know more about it than you can imagine. But
it's not like it's all over message boards, Dave. Everybody kind of knew about that, like, during the time.
Well, let's go back to recruiting and what we know. Okay, what's been reported. Lane Kiffin took some very questionable characters in recruiting. Agreed. Like, there were more in his one signing class at Tennessee. There were literally more felons than there were all SEC players.
And when we say felons, there might have been as many murderers as overall SEC players.
Yes, I mean, there was one for sure murder. That was the biggest one. So I think, though, that Lane Kiffin, if we want to talk strictly from what's been reported standpoint, he would have had the ability to run those players off. Jeremy Pruitt was in a bad position because when you pay a player, he can flip on you. So you lose all leverage over them on and off the field. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there's a back in the day when you couldn't pay players, there's a pragmatic reason, not an ethical reason, not a rules reason. It's because if you pay a guy, Tennessee had a running back out of the Nashville area. That's a great example. If you pay a guy and things don't go right, he can flip on you and turn you in.
Yes. No, that's a very good point. That's actually what happened with SMU. And then the reason they got the death penalty is they were on probation, but they had all these players they had promised money to, so they had to keep paying them, basically. And then the NCAA was like, really? We just gave you probation and you're going to keep paying them? Here's the death penalty. Now, if someone brings this up, Lane would have probably gotten Tennessee on probation. Dave, don't you think, though, if you're a Tennessee fan, given how the decade went, that would have been worth it just for the fun of having Lane Kiffin as your coach and still winning games?
It depends. If I was a reporter at the time and I was having to work 70-hour weeks in the offseason covering an NCAA investigation, I would say no. But if I was a talk show host that I am now, I would say absolutely yes. Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and volume dealers. Stay tuned. Caleb, what's next?
I am going to give you the real reason that the Big Ten is pushing for this specific college football playoff format, and I got data to prove it.
All right, it'll be Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Stay tuned. It is what I like to call the one and the only Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. 2 minutes.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
LSCC Center, Cooper Mays here. 4th down. Cooper Mays here.
What? What are you doing, Coop? All right. But that's not Coop's fault.
Partying it up.
Yeah, he's getting.
He's already started that. What is it? That hemp store that he was going to start?
Coop?
Remember there was a joke where there was a rumor that he was starting a store to get blazed up. And he's like, that's not true.
Oh, no. I heard that he was. There was some goofy rumor, and I actually texted him about it. I just got an LOL back that he was doing the smokehouse.
That's right, the smokehouse. Yeah. Do you think he's already been affected by the smokehouse?
No. It was
joking.
a meat smokehouse.
It was a what?
meat. It was meat,
Ew.
like a barbecue place. It wasn't a CBD shop.
Okay, I was always thinking that because we were making so many CBD jokes with him during that time.
Well, I don't think so, but I guess I'll text him and ask.
And here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
We have our 3:45 a.m. production meeting where a lot of great ideas get kicked around. And this one in particular, I thought was really good. And it was one of those weird ones where we've had so much to talk about with Tennessee that we really haven't kicked it around. But I've thought this the whole time. And Caleb basically was like my inner voice and just repeated it. These Big Ten athletic directors and the Big Ten in general, they should, and I believe do, want the automatic qualifiers more than the SEC. And why is that? Because I think you could easily see a year in which the SEC gets 5 and the Big Ten gets just 3 in, that means less revenue for the Big Ten. Could it be 6-2? I wouldn't rule that out, but I have trouble believing it would be anything more beneficiary for the Big Ten than 4-4. I think that's the best case scenario for the Big Ten. 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. So you're kind of, if you're the Big Ten, to agree to anything else is just worst case scenario. So you might as well fight for more, which would be automatically getting 4 bids in, automatically getting 5 teams in. So I think you're right on point, Caleb. And I know you're going to turn a column about this later today, but I think you're 100% on it.
So the Big Ten's reason, see, I'm going to take it a step further. We all thought the biggest reason was the automatic qualifiers would guarantee, when the Big Ten was worried they wouldn't get enough teams in, this gets more than usual, and then they don't get so outrun by the SEC. That was why, I don't know if you know this, Dave, a couple of weeks ago, the Big Ten said, the SEC wants the 5+11 format, 5 conference champions, just the 11 best teams after that. The Big Ten said, we'll get on board with that if the SEC moves to 9 conference games. So they're worried about the SEC taking slots from them, right?
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. It goes beyond that. They're not worried about the SEC taking slots from them. That's what we all thought. I did my own research recently, and they're worried just about the SEC getting more slots. It wouldn't affect their number of slots at all. It would just give the SEC more slots, and that's what they really don't. So let me give you an example just real quick. Let's just take last year's college football playoff ranking. I tracked this last year. 4 Big Ten teams got into the playoff, 3 SEC teams. Now, if you had the 16-team playoff last year instead of 12 teams, if you had the proposed SEC format, 5+11, you still would have had 4 Big Ten teams, but you would have had 6 SEC teams. Now, if you had the automatic qualifier format that the Big Ten wants, you would have had 4 Big Ten teams and 5 SEC teams. The Big Ten is not pushing the automatic qualifier format to make sure they get as many teams as they can in. They're pushing the automatic qualifier format to make sure the SEC doesn't get as many teams in as they can get in. Here's where it's clear. Because they're not pushing for just them to get 4 and the SEC to get 4. The real key is they're pushing for the ACC and the Big 12 to each get 2.
Exactly.
That way that takes stuff away from the SEC. That's what they want.
Exactly. And it's like a political thing, really. I mean, whoever you voted for, I don't really care. I don't want to get into that. But they all say something, but there's an ulterior motive, right?
Exactly.
So the Big Ten hasn't come out and said, we believe the ACC and Big 12 deserve 2 teams apiece, because it would be so transparent. You'd be like, oh, they're just trying to take spots from the SEC.
Exactly.
So they haven't come out and said that, but I guarantee you that's what they're arguing behind closed doors.
That is exactly what they're arguing behind closed doors. And you make a good point, Dave, that I didn't even think about until you brought it up. When this is where it is like politics. What's the first rule of politics if you're running a race?
I don't know. Lie a lot.
Know your opponent. Define your opponent. One of the most successful races that are run in politics, particularly presidential races, are ones in which the opponent is defined, in which someone defines their opponent before they even define themselves. The Big Ten and SEC think totally differently. The SEC solely thinks about what they want to do, maximizing revenue, adding teams, whatever. The Big Ten takes the SEC into account for every decision they've made. And let's be honest, Dave, that's probably why the Big Ten has been able to fleece the SEC to a certain degree on things like TV deals or stuff like that. They think when the Big Ten negotiated that TV deal, well, first of all, let's talk about Big Ten expansion. Why did they add UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington? Because the SEC went to 16. Then the Big Ten went to the television networks and made all these promises with them. They cashed in on the fact that CBS was bitter about losing the SEC and say, hey, we'll come. Why don't you give us Purdue Northwestern? And CBS stupidly paid $300 million for like Purdue Northwestern once a week in those type of games. But the Big Ten has consistently made decisions not just on what helps them, but on what can maximize hurt for the SEC. And I can't even blame them. Because it's not just 2024, by the way. 2023, if you had the automatic qualifier, it doesn't matter if you had the 5+11 model or the automatic qualifier format in 2023. There would have been 4 Big Ten teams go in with this current setup with the conference as is. It's just there would have been fewer SEC teams go in. They're not worried about themselves. They do not want the SEC to take more shine from them. So it's as important to them to make sure the SEC doesn't maximize its potential as it is for them to maximize their potential.
I heard a recent interview with Greg Sankey, and I think he's a good commissioner. But I actually
You
think
and I disagree on that so badly.
I said good, not great or elite. I mean, you have to be good to be at the SEC level, right? Or you're going to get fired.
No, I think that's like sometimes, Dave, have you ever, businesses where sometimes you can take over an amazing product and just still be good with it because it's impossible to screw up?
Okay, we'll agree to disagree there, but I think we'll agree on this. Tony
Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl.
Fair point.
Took over a good product, didn't have to do anything with it.
Yeah, and ate a hot dog during a football game one time. And during a football game, did you know that? Yeah. All right, I actually ate a hot dog. All right, so but whatever you think of Sankey, Tony Petitti's way better,
significantly better,
because he negotiated a better TV deal, and I don't think he shows his hand. I heard an interview with Greg Sankey recently, in which you could hear the frustration in his voice with this automatic qualifier thing. I've interviewed him before, where I could interview his frustration with the playoff format or other things. I don't really know. You talk about knowing your opponent. I don't really know where Tony Petitti stands because he doesn't show his hand. He's the guy that sits at the poker table. You're like, I have no idea what that guy's got. As fans, as analysts, we have no idea what that guy's thinking. We didn't know that he was going to sign that big of a television contract. The SEC certainly didn't know, or they would have signed one that was comparable. So I think that as much as I like Sankey, you don't. I think we can both agree that the Big Ten has an advantage there.
Yes. Sankey, and the crazy part is I thought Sankey was more of a politician than this and was better, but he's been giving away his hand a lot in how he feels because he's openly in public trying to negotiate playoff deals and SEC scheduling, and he's frustrated with the pushback from different leagues. The funny thing to me, Dave, is you notice the Big Ten is sitting back and letting Greg Sankey take all the heat for whatever college football playoff thing happens, even though the Big Ten is the one responsible for doing what everybody doesn't want. The number one format people don't want is the automatic qualifier format. And yet the Big Ten is letting the SEC take the blame for that. With the SEC, Greg Sankey doesn't even want that format. Greg Sankey just wants to move on and be like, please, let's clear this up. But like, he can't get his coaches in line. And here's where the root of it is, Dave. It all comes back to the TV deal. Because here's the real truth of the matter. The coaches in the SEC are trying to have their cake and eat it too, but they're mad at Greg Sankey for this deal. They want the 5+11 format. And they should, by the way. Because think about it, last year, Dave, if you had the 5+11 format, South Carolina and Ole Miss are in the college football playoff. If you had the automatic qualifiers, one of them's not going to get in. So they should want the 5+11 format, right? Yep. If you're Lane Kiffin or Shane Beamer. They want the 5+11. They also don't want a 9-game schedule. The Big Ten will only agree to a 5+11 format if they can get a 9-game schedule for the SEC. The only way the SEC can agree to a 9-game schedule and get the 9-game schedule is if, and by the way, this is how ESPN is reportedly willing to offer a lot more money and renegotiate the contract for that 9th SEC game. Because that's way more money for ESPN at that point. But you do have 8 fewer total games if you have a 9-game schedule. And for the conference as a whole. The schools don't want that unless there's a really good payout. So this all comes back to the fact that Greg Sankey negotiated a bad deal because the schools are saying, we're not getting the payout that the Big Ten are getting paid. Why would we agree to a 9th conference game? For every other year for a school, that's one less home game where they can just bring in a bunch of revenue. And so they have to go out of their way to figure out a way to, and I don't know how he's going to do it, but Greg Sankey is really caught in a pickle now. And the reason he's in a pickle is because the coaches in the SEC want the 5+11 format, but they don't want a 9-game schedule unless the contract with ESPN is renegotiated and the payout's better. And I don't think you can get those two things. And by the way, you can't get the 5+11 format unless you go to a 9-game schedule. And I don't think they can get the 9-game schedule in the SEC.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Got a couple of people agreeing with Caleb. That doesn't happen as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. Boy, I purchased my vehicle there, and I couldn't be happier. I was driving this morning thinking, I got such an incredible value for what I have, and I just can't thank them enough for being part of the program.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
I got a little bit out of order there. I'm sorry. Bank on it. The Big Ten athletic directors are trying to stick it to the SEC. I think we both agree on that. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better, CBTN.com. Anything to add to that final discussion before we get to stat of the day?
Yes, also bank on it. Not through any elite negotiation of Greg Sankey, but the SEC is going to win out, and we're going to see the 5+11 format next year. And the reason we're going to see the 5+11 format next year is because they will go to 9 conference games. The reason being, Dave, ESPN wants 9 conference games so badly. They would renegotiate that contract to get that extra conference game per school. That's just too much extra money for the 9th conference game. So
I won't argue with that.
Yeah.
Stat of the day is what, Caleb Calhoun?
All right, stat of the day. Josh Heupel is about to be the 10th head coach in Tennessee football history to enter his 5th season with the Vols. Only 10 head coaches have lasted 5 seasons, or up to 5 seasons.
Can I try to name them?
Sure, go ahead and name them.
Okay. Now, Neyland had a break in the middle. Does that count?
Well, Neyland lasted 5 seasons in all 3 stints, so he's
yeah. Sorry. Neyland, Fulmer, Majors, and then I'll hand it off to our historian, Caleb Calhoun.
Bill Battle, Doug Dickey, Bowden Wyatt. Those are another 3. And then MB Banks and Zora Clevenger.
I loved Zora. I thought whoever was incredibly underrated.
Actually, Zora Clevenger, he was the coach of Tennessee's first team to ever win a conference championship game and their first team to ever go undefeated. They went 9-0 in 1914, and the first Tennessee team to ever beat Vanderbilt.
Does the name Zora Cleveland, is that what it was?
Zora G. Clevenger.
Zora G. Clevenger. Does that not sound like Tom Cruise's next girlfriend?
Probably.
He breaks up with somebody and, Tom Cruise is dating Zora G. Clevenger.
I mean, Zora Clevenger is a top 5 coach in Tennessee football history. I'm dead serious on that. Like, he's above Johnny Majors. So, all right. But the other one, the 9th one I left out with Josh Heupel, is the legendary Butch Jones. But Dave, do you want to guess where Josh Heupel, among those 10 coaches, where his winning percentage ranks entering his 5th year compared to what other coaches stood at entering their 5th year?
Feels like middle of the pack, not?
You are dead right. It's middle of the pack. It's number 5.
Yeah. I mean, but I would be interested, and this might be a project for you on a column in the future. How did the programs compare to when he took those over?
Right, and that's where I'm going to go down the list with you real quick. So Neyland is number 1.
We both agree he took over a hot mess.
Took over a total mess. Neyland's number 1. He lost 1 game his first 5 years at Tennessee.
Good Lord.
I mean, lost 1. He took over a decent program from MB Banks, but he didn't take over that good of a program. Bill Battle's number 2. Went 39-9 and had a couple ties. Had a 81.25 win percentage, but Bill Battle inherited a program at its peak under Doug Dickey. Honestly, Philip Fulmer's number 3, believe it or not, and again inherited a very good program. Battle and Fulmer inherited good programs. Doug Dickey's number 4 did not inherit that great of a program, but went 29-11 his first 4 years. Heupel's number 5. He's in the Dickey tier. Bowden Wyatt's number 6. Zora Clevenger's number 7, but Zora Clevenger took over a program as bad as Josh Heupel did. So for Heupel to be better than Zora Clevenger is pretty impressive. MB Banks is number 8. Butch Jones is number 9. And Johnny Majors is the only one on the list with a losing record at 47.7% his first 4 years at Tennessee, going into his 5th year. Johnny Majors took over a bad program. Majors defenders won't want to hear this. That it didn't excuse a losing record his first 4 years there. It wasn't that bad. Wasn't bad enough for that. Josh Heupel took over a worse program.
Agreed. The show again brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. That was our stat of the day. We're with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're about to hit 8,000 subscribers. We can't thank you enough, and it means a lot. The community continues to grow. The support continues to grow, and we love being with you each and every day at 10 a.m. But I'll remind you of two things. One, you got to like and subscribe. You got to watch if you like the program. And number two, support our sponsors and mention Off the Hook Sports. It means a lot. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Off the Hook Sports. We're with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Check us out. The latest columns will be on offthehooksports.com. I've got something cooking. Caleb's got something cooking each and every day. Off the Hook Sports.